Special meeting.
Special meeting, okay. Call the special meeting to order at 12:04 on Tuesday, April 22nd, Earth Day. And Lindsay is pulling up the agenda for me.
Oh, I was also pulling up the quotes. Just
you're pulling up the quotes.
Oh, yep, sorry.
Pull up the agenda for me too.
I don't have an easy way to pull up the agenda.
I know, that's where I'm struggling too.
I can be your reader of the agenda if you'd like.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
yeah, because I'm scrambling right now.
Call to order. We need to add an item. We need to add an item to the agenda, which is a resignation.
Yep.
And then we are on to items for discussion, followed by motion.
Titles our savior. Thank you. Okay, so we have items for discussion. So the first thing we need to do is riff a position from a 1.0 to a 1 or a 0.9. And so Lindsay, do you want to introduce that?
Yep. So
Which we've talked about before,
yep,
but-
it has been a discussion. It just needs the official board, if that is the will of the board, to be able to do that. It is a position of 0.9 that is already budgeted in the budget for FY26 as 0.9. So it is budgeted in that way already for next year. And that has been the case for this current year for this employee as well.
Okay. So we just need to formally formalize it.
Correct. Yep.
Position for the position, not the employee.
Position.
Yes, the
Yes,
position.
thank you.
I make a motion to accept the RIF from a 1 to a 0.9.
No, 1.0 to 0.9.
So from 1 to 0.9, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. I thought you said 1.9.
No, sorry, 1 to 0.9.
Yes. Okay. Is there a second? Okay, Beth seconds with her fingers. Is there any further discussion? No? Okay, so we'll do a roll call. Heather?
Aye.
Beth?
Aye. My mouth's full, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I do have to leave it at 12:25, so just a heads up.
Okay, and I am also an aye. So the motion is passed 3-0. Okay,
Thank you.
And Lindsay, you'll let the union know.
Yes, I will inform the union.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can the union separate that?
No, the union is not able to grieve anything. If a board cuts any position,
not an-
correct, if the board cuts any, well, even if the board, and Christine, correct if I'm wrong, even if the board gets rid of one position as a whole, like if you were to get rid of 1.0, an entire position, the board the union cannot grieve that if the board cuts it.
We have to inform them.
They just need to be informed.
Okay. Can I sneak out?
Mhm.
Thank
I mean, you wouldn't normally cut a position if it wasn't a budgetary constraint. And
Correct.
I think this position was budgeted in Larry Budget's current, there's a term for it, it's not coming to me, but current salary to next year's salary. And because it was 0.9 this year, he put it in the budget as 0.9 for next year. So
so we just had to formally do it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Next item is a discussion about the van.
I can take it from here if that's all right.
Yes, please.
So, a few weeks ago, we needed some work done on the van, and John brought it to, it's a 2000, hold on, let me get the paper so I got it. It is a 2009 that currently has approximately 126,000 miles on it. We use it on average about 3 times a week, depending on the time of year. Sometimes that's more like 5 times a week, but on average, I would say about 3 times a week is the use of that van.
it's about
So-
50 miles a week put on it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is something that, for a variety of reasons, that we have a need for. So we got a quote to, right now it's not drivable, the current van that we have. The quote for the work to be done is over $3,000, $3,068.14. Sorry.
Okay.
To be exact. And so we said, well, are we kind of at this point, 2009 is an older vehicle with a lot of miles. Are we at this point where it's worth considering exploring some options to purchase? So I brought that idea to Larry first and said, what do you all think? You know, are we, you know, in a place where I could potentially bring to the board an idea to do this? And
What were
he
the
had-
repairs that were needed?
Hold on. It says upstream right air fuel something, downstream right oxygen center, cooling fan module, ATF SYN. I'm not sure. It just has those letters. A drain plug washer, brake clean, and a radiator and a coolant.
Okay.
So Larry, I went to Larry and I said, you know, is there anything that we might be able to do? And there is currently in the line item of salaries for teachers. There was a resignation of a teacher position in the fall that we have not been able to fill. It is a one of the PE teacher positions that for next year is already reduced anyway. So that's not a position that is remaining after this current year.
Okay.
There are funds in that line item under salaries for teachers that if the board would approve that could get shifted over. So it wouldn't cost any additional, it's already budgeted dollars,
Mhm.
gets shifted over to purchase a new vehicle.
Okay.
You're just gonna be over on one line and under on one line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Christine, did I get all of the pieces? I sent the 3 quotes
Mhm.
for
I saw that.
the vehicles.
Mhm.
Which
Okay.
anything over $40,000 you need
Okay.
votes.
Okay.
So yep.
Okay, and hey
Hi,
Ryan.
Ryan.
Sorry, I
We're
forgot.
talking
I
about
thought
the
today was
van.
Monday.
You're okay.
No
We're all
worries.
feeling that way. We're talking about quotes for the van. We have a position that we did not fill that is not in the budget for next year, and we would shift the funds from that teacher position to a purchase position so that we could use that money for the van. And that's what we're talking about. So for a 2009 vehicle, yeah, the vehicle's probably worth like what, $2,000?
If I pull up, I believe the quote from McGee's, let me find it, might have had.
Yeah, trade-in value.
Trade-in McGee's was 2,000.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was my question. 2 of the quotes I don't think had a trade-in value. Was that one has a 1,500 was the rebate or whatever? I was wondering if that was part of it, or do we also get a trade-in from those other places?
We would most likely also get some, I think, some level of trade-in. They didn't provide the trade-in payoff on these quotes.
And sorry, what was the van initially used for in the first place?
We use it for a variety. Yeah, I don't know I'm not sure if this van was purchased back in 2009 I'm not sure, but right now we use it for a variety of different reasons. There are kids that needs to get transported, some programming type things from Hartland to some of the other schools across the SU. It's certainly used for winter activities. It's used to sometimes bring kiddos home, if an as needed basis. And Ryan, what I was saying is we on average probably use it about 3 times a week for about 50 miles a week. But it is certainly something that it does not just sit idly for long periods of time.
We have kids that have services, like sometimes in White River.
We've used it to bring kids to pre-K when we've
Yep.
had alter days for kids that
Yeah.
need different things. So
Yeah. I mean, we have the money now. I feel like, I don't know, there's part of me that likes to keep things running and keep this running, but I also feel like then we just putting ourselves in a really bad position next year. And so I'm curious to hear what other people think. Like for that reason, I'm in favor of moving forward. And I
It's-
I'm going to
suspect
go with what my father always says is that, what is his saying when it comes to why keep throwing money in the drain when you can put it towards a new vehicle? So
Yeah.
I'm with a new vehicle.
I probably should have brought this up when I was looking at the quotes. I completely forgot. Would it be, I know maybe not, like would leasing a vehicle be a cheaper option year to year? And then at least we would have a new, like, we wouldn't be in this predicament again. And I mean, that was a while ago, 14, 15, 16 years ago. But if we spent the same amount of money year over year, and at least every 5 years we had a new van.
Do you want me to get Larry? He's right next door.
I had the same thought. It's not in the budget for next year, so we'd have to find the money for next year,
Okay.
which would not be a small amount. But I had the exact same thought.
Well, and I have the thought too of like, what would it take to go electric?
Yeah, I noticed that
And that we,
at least one of these is a hybrid.
Mhm.
Would we need to get a charging station if we went electric?
Yeah.
More likely than not, yes, I would think so.
I'm just texting Larry to see if there's any particular reason why you wouldn't want to lease versus buy.
Yeah, I feel like we also mentioned that at some point.
because these are new vehicles, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I did ask Larry about that, and his suggestion was to purchase new, just so there's less risk and less struggles potentially with the vehicle. And even with new, I found as we were attempting to locate quotes, it's not easy even sometimes to get quotes for things because like Toyota won't, in general, what I learned is they won't really quote you on vehicles that they're not ready to get. They won't necessarily send you a quote on a hypothetical, Sienna LE.
Mm-hmm.
He says leasing is always worse, always better to purchase and own outright. That's
Okay.
just from Larry. I
What the
just
finance guy says.
why
That's what my dad always said too.
my dad.
Although when it comes to electric vehicles, the research we've done around electric vehicles is actually better to lease.
Better to lease.
That's what I heard. But I mean, maybe I own a 2008 and a 2007 vehicle right now. I'm not the woman to talk to, but I mean, whatever you guys think. I don't think if you think it's better off buying it, buy it. Like if it's worth
Right.
investing, don't do it. I don't know. Like we're not the mechanic. Like I just feel like if you guys are coming to us saying we think we need to buy a vehicle, then as a school board member, I go buy a vehicle. Like that's I guess my reaction to it because I don't know the intricacies of the issues.
Okay.
And you've explained how we can do it financially in a way that makes sense. And so I'm kind of in agreement. If you say buy a vehicle, we need to buy a vehicle. Hi, Hannah. Oh, you're on mute, but we saw that you said hi. We can read.
Hi.
I have another question. Is there anything else that like this money is not like the PE money is that it's not being used for? If like, so like, if we don't use this money, where does this money go for the PE teacher?
You end up with a surplus.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean,
Pay
we're not
down
done.
our budget next year.
Okay, it could be used for the budget next year.
Well, you would probably want to put it in capital reserve. That would be the best budgetary decision.
Okay.
Using surplus to buy down your the budget catches up with you, right?
Yeah, but I guess my next question is, so like, we put money in the capital reserve, but could you use the capital reserve money for a vehicle? Is that something that can be used, the capital reserve be used for? Because like, I mean, I'd rather just use the money now than put it into the capital reserve when, vehicles are going to be much more expensive. They're just going to keep getting more and more expensive. So I feel like it's better to purchase now than throw it into capital reserve where we might use it for a vehicle at another time. If you can use capital reserve money for vehicles.
I'm asking Larry. But Hartland, you have to bring it to the vote. Any capital reserve monies that are spent, you have to bring to the voters in March.
I think the challenge is that we need a van now.
Yeah, because right now, as it stands, the van will not drive safely.
So
Can I just move that we buy a van? I have 5 minutes.
Yep. Is there a second to that?
Do you have a preference on which quote you would like to go with?
Absolutely not. That's, since I will never see or touch this vehicle, I don't feel it's right to me.
There was one that was the cheapest.
I would either go cheapest or whichever one. I mean, like, if we're going to be, environmentally friendly, let's go hybrid. But I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a move by Beth and a second by Heather. And yeah, the cheapest quote was the one that's also the closest.
Yep.
With the quote, so.
Yes.
Okay, so is there any further discussion? Okay, I didn't hear anything. We'll do a roll call. Heather?
Aye.
Okay, Beth?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Hannah?
Aye.
Okay, Nikki, I'm also an aye, and so that was a 5-0, and we are giving them approval to buy a van.
Oh, thank you.
And the quotes were reasonable. They were actually less than I thought they would be. So,
And I think with one of them, I can get on the much quicker side.
Okay.
Than
okay,
one that I know is coming in very, very soon.
okay, cool. Okay, we had to add an item to the agenda. Oh, wait, where did my agenda go? Hold on. Okay, so I want to, we have an emails to the Senate, Vermont Senate for Bill 454, but we also have a resignation that we need to approve so we can get it posted. So I'd like to do that one first if people are okay with that. Give me a thumbs up if you're good with that. Okay. Or not, we're good. Okay. So Lindsay, back to you.
Yes. So we have a resignation from James Blondin, who is our PE teacher. We are going to be very sad to see him go. Him and his family are relocating. And so we wish them nothing but the best in their future endeavors and where that brings them. But certainly he leaves a big hole because he's definitely built in the time he's been here. This is his first year, but he's really built some wonderful relationships with kiddos.
Yeah.
So we are very sad to see him go, but do wish him all the best.
Can I ask, Lindsay, do you feel like his departure was motivated in any way by the fact that he was no longer going to have a partner with a co-gym teacher?
I don't think so. He made it, the way he's described it to Christine and I was that he and his family have sold their home. That's already happened, and that they're just relocating out of the area.
That is a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a motion and a second.
I'll move. I can move.
Okay, so Hannah moves.
Second.
Okay, Beth seconds. If there's any further discussion. Okay. So the motion that Hannah moved was to regretfully accept James Blondin's resignation. Heather, your vote?
Aye. But one of my children is going to be crushed.
Yeah. Beth?
Aye.
Okay. Ryan?
Aye.
Hannah?
Aye.
And I myself am also an aye, and I'm sad for our community
Mm-hmm.
to lose him. But okay, so now we will move on to a discussion of sending an email to the Vermont Senate regarding Bill 454, and this is the Senate's draft of the bill that was passed in the House. 2 weeks ago? Is that correct, Christine? Or?
It's
a week and a half.
It's the House's version.
Oh, the House's version. Okay.
Yeah, it's come out of the House. It's now in the Senate, and we expect it to change.
Yes. Okay.
So, and I just sent you all just like 20 minutes ago a timeline and a kind of a summary of the bill. If you're interested, it is long. You're not going to probably have time to read it right now, but
Yeah.
Just for your information, if it's helpful to whatever you just.
So I think at Christine's recommendation, I think that it may make sense to create a subcommittee so that we don't have to have full discussion as a board, and we can move things along quicker and and have it less impact to people's time. Hannah, I think that you've done a lot of research.
Yeah, I'm happy. And I feel like, I put this on the budget, so I'm happy to sort of take a little ownership of it. I think it would be really helpful if we could spend like even just
Oh, yeah,
5 minutes
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, that was just a setup that I think that we want a subcommittee. Is there anybody else that wants to be on the subcommittee with Hannah? I'm happy to help Hannah.
I mean, if I'm also happy, like if it's within the rules of our operations, like if we could just spend 5 or 10 minutes just identifying some key sort of philosophies and values that we want to communicate, right? Like I think that's the goal of the letter, is to sort of say, make sure the legislature hears from our town what we care about, and make sure that our town knows that this is what we as the school board, as this policy is being constructed, what we feel like is important to consider on behalf of the students and taxpayers of the town. And so I would be happy to sort of draft a letter and share it with people. And if people feel comfortable with it, we could just sign it electronically.
I think that's a great plan.
Because like, it's not going to actually be like, I don't know how impactful it necessarily will be, right? I think there's going to be, my impression from reading the bill is that what the bill does is it outlines, and I think Christine just sent this, it outlines a reasonably measured approach to reevaluating the system, right? If we say, like, as it currently stands, the level of cost efficiency of education in Vermont is not acceptable to Vermont voters, and therefore there's been a clear statement from the voters of Vermont that we need to be more cost efficient. So how do we do that? And I think the worry is that in the process of trying to become more cost efficient, we will lose a lot of the really intangible, valuable qualities of local small schools. And that this process is intended to kind of figure out sort of slowly how we do that. So I think we're going to have to be involved over the next 3 to 5 years, making sure at every point along the way we show up and speak. But just as a starting point to sort of outline, like, what do we see as reading this first draft and thinking about how it might impact Hartland voters and Hartland students? What are the things we want to make sure we highlight as, like, these are the things that we will remain committed to as a board, was kind of my idea. Or that we'll try to, that we'll ask, that remains on the kind of priority list as it's all being negotiated.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think
so if you guys have anything in particular, if you have had a chance to read it and want to say anything, I mean,
Anna, did you get the letter that I sent you from another board?
I know you said you were going to send it, but then I don't know that I actually saw it, which is probably my fault, not yours.
I'll send it again.
Okay,
It
sorry.
just might give you some ideas. That's all.
that's great.
Oh, yep.
So I think one of the biggest challenges that was written into the bill as it is that any school that operates in K through 6 through 8 that has less than 450 kids would be closed.
Right.
And so here we sit in like the 4th/5th largest town in Windsor County, and we don't meet that criteria.
Right.
And I don't think that the people that are writing the bill understand that they're talking about closing not small schools, they're talking about closing medium-sized schools as well. Throughout the state.
So I totally agree, Nikki. That's the part that's the most worrisome to me, is that minimum school size, and it's an intent, right? It's not a mandate yet, but it's going to be used as they craft. So what we want to say is, when we read that section, we recognize that if this were to become a mandate, our school would by definition close. And we want to firmly advocate against that. Because of the fact that our school serves I don't know if we want to talk about sort of a geographical range that it serves, if we want to talk about the fact that it's ultimately an elementary school, and that these minimum school sizes, it's one thing to sort of apply them at the high school level, but that if we start to apply them to middle schools, we may inadvertently impact lower education where there doesn't seem to be a push to consolidate as much.
Yeah.
So maybe kind of talking something about that. Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also think that we need to talk about the fact that schools are the heart of the community.
Yeah.
And that if they're inadvertently closing elementary schools, that's not good.
Yeah, and I think we can sort of say it like I think the most powerful thing we can do is use the Hartland experience, right? We can let every other town speak for themselves. We can say like in the town of Hartland there is not a large commercial presence, and our school serves as a community center in many many ways for many residents in terms of bringing resources, et cetera, to rural spaces, and that the loss of that would be huge.
Yep.
We mentioned that it's actually a medium-sized school, so I'll talk about that like number third, whatever third largest, whatever. Anything else about that anyone, but even if you don't have like a well-crafted sentence, just like buzzwords to include in that when I write it, like.
Yeah, I think it's also important to highlight the size of the town. I mean, we are one of the largest in Windsor County.
Population wise and physical space.
Yeah, physical space, all the towns are the same size pretty much, but
Right.
except for ones that have been cut in half. But yeah, population wise, we're one of the largest. And that would be devastating. So.
Another thing that I want to
think
make sure to
all-
mention is that in terms of any changes to governance, ensuring that each town, but ensuring that sort of acknowledging it, even if there are changes to the structure of the school governance within the state, that we want to ensure that towns like Hartland are represented equitably, because there's going to be some point somebody's going to have to decide, are they going to do a number per town or is it going to be population based? But we just want to make sure we don't end up not having a voice. Somebody needs to be on some board, right?
Yeah.
And my other thing I was going to add in, Hannah, is that like, so if they do make these big things about like closing small schools, like if we were to take our students and move them somewhere, the schools are already overcrowded. Nobody can take us. Like that's the other thing is like, there's like Woodstock Elementary can't take any more kids. They've got too many. Like Weathersfield's probably in the same boat. Can Windsor absorb all of us?
I mean, one of the things that's in the bill is this like construction, like technically an appropriation for construction. I think that the inclusion of 6, 7, and 8 in that language of school size intent is honestly a little bit of an oversight. Like I think that the what's the word I'm looking for? The spirit of this push is to consolidate high schools with the idea of building a mega high school.
Yeah.
And I think that I just want to make sure they realize, like by saying 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're including in it a lot of middle school children who are currently educated in their town elementary schools. And so that language runs the risk of threatening the smaller elementary schools. So that's one thing that maybe we just want to say is like separating out high school from middle school.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a high school minimum size of 450, fine. That's like big, but it's not crazy. And that would be a reasonable size high school. But I think I don't like that they've included middle school students in that.
Well, and I think another thing to highlight is that we already in our single community have bus routes that are 45 minutes to an hour long.
Okay. So bus times.
And that's like, we can't put elementary school kids on a bus ride that's over an hour long.
No.
And we already have that in our town. So that needs to be.
I also want to hold on 1 second, and here's why I'm going to hold on for 1 second. So let's say we say separate, middle school, like 6, 7, and 8, and then separate them from the high school. Then like, I'm going to speak for not a Hartland person, but for like a Woodstock person, because our middle school and high school is 7 through 12. And we have over 450 kids. But if you take out 7 and 8, we no longer have 450 kids. So now like what that does is put like that high school, aka where I work, like on a chopping block. So like, unfortunately, I don't think there's any way we can win here, right? Because for some schools, taking 6, 7, and 8, it hurts Hartland, but then it's going to hurt Woodstock if you take the 6, 7, and 8 out of there. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm. I think, I mean, Heather, I hear you. And I think that's like what, when I have emailed a little bit with Jill Karnowski, the Speaker of the House, and it's just the messaging is like, these are going to be difficult choices. And it's like really irritating, but it's true that like, I think that what is clear is like the current system is not working, right? When 30% of the budget fails, the citizens are saying we're not willing to continue to pay this much for education. So I think there is consolidation coming. It probably at some
budgets
levels
did not fail this year.
they did not fail this year. True.
No.
That's true.
Most
But do you think that's because people knew that there was relief coming, or?
No, I think part of last year was the financial cliff that we were all expecting. It was ESSER funds going away, which a lot of positions, I mean, it was predicted for several years in advance. So I think there was some reduction. There were reductions made last year and some right sizing. I mean, Hartland is an example of that. I think the threshold back in place facilitated some of that for this year's budget season, and I think that's why budgets tended to pass this year over last year.
I would also say that there's.
I'm sorry. I have
No,
to.
that's okay.
We'll be.
But I'm happy to help if to construct an email, or I don't know the rules, but if Hannah writes this email, can we all read it and then give her feedback?
I think as long as it's in our WSCSU email, it's all public record and it's okay.
We cannot group edit a document.
You have to do it individually.
If you send it to individuals, we can individually provide edits to you, and you can choose to incorporate our edits or not incorporate.
Okay, so then you can send me edits back, and then I can send another draft.
But we can't CC anybody on those edits.
Got it. Okay, so that's
You can send the final document to us and say, do you agree with this?
Okay. So we'll talk about governance. We'll talk about school. The school
Thanks,
side
Heather.
is the worst part, right?
Yeah, and then the other thing that I really struggle with is, and this is from personal experience, I came from a school in Baltimore County that was the same size as Hartland. We had 2 grades per class, and then got dumped into a middle school where we had 200 kids per class. And that happens at the most awkward time of your life. Because the school was so large, it was a very military environment where there was no individual thought, and things were run very militantly. And it was toxic, and it was really harmful, I think, for people that went through it. And as a result of that experience, I ended up going to a private high school because my parents were done with that environment. And I think that while we can't offer the breadth of classes in our smaller middle schools, I do think it gives a lot of safety to kids in their most awkward growing time.
Yeah, it's so. I was just saying this, that I think it's a really important balance and such an important perspective on the other side of being able to offer so many things. And yeah, so I think for the purpose of this, just because this is all still in the infancy, and really the thing we're gonna have to do is, again, just stay really engaged when these specific decisions get made. But I think at least coming out and just being clear that we really worry about applying minimum school size standards to 6 to 12, because it will consume, it really threatens small local elementary schools that include 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then just making sure we, really feel it's important that every small town, every town has some role in governance. Okay.
Yeah. Nice job.
And then I'll look at that other letter. Was there anything else that they included?
In their letter, they had some concerns about forcing more school mergers without community involvement. So, I mean, I haven't heard from a lot of constituents about this. I don't know that people are really paying attention.
I don't think people are paying attention. I don't think people
are paying attention.
Driving the closure of many elementary, middle, and schools, increasing bus rides, time on buses, continuing to increase property tax rates to struggling rural towns, decreasing student outcomes, and then they talk about, where's the research behind this that makes it something that we want to do? Like, what is it going? improve outcomes for our students, right? And opportunities. So yeah, you can read it. It's not long, Hannah. I just resent it to you.
Okay,
So
thank you. Okay.
Right.
All right.
So I think we have a subcommittee of one, and Hannah, I'm here for you whenever you need me. I'm happy to do a first proofread, or I'm happy
Okay.
to have a phone call.
That
and
sounds
bounce
good.
ideas.
That
I-
sounds good.
And
I'll
I
try to get you.
I could be in this committee or whatever too.
Ryan has a very vested interest.
I have. I read this 14-page summary first before.
Yep, sent that to you.
I saw your entire vested interest walking through town the other day, and it was like so incredible and adorable and
I snarl.
the wagon, and then one more baby tied to your wife. I was like,
Oh.
man, they are champions.
So of all of it, so I don't know if you guys saw Vermont Public, I think, or VT Digger had an article about Westford, and they basically took their 6 through 8 and they're sending them to Essex. And I was actually surprised. There was like 40, almost half of the parents agreed that they wanted their kids to go to Essex. So
Interesting.
Middle level. Well, how
Yeah.
small were their I mean, if you have a middle school of 15 kids, that's too small, right?
Yeah.
You have-
Theirs was the thing that kind of got me like the hairs on the back of my neck stand up was I think there were 239. So removing those kids was like 36 or 39 kids, and like that would make them potentially almost the same size as Hartland, right? Because we have 50. So we're like slightly bigger.
In middle school, you've got 85, I think.
Yeah, just in grade 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
85.
The numbers student wise were too close for me to be like comfortable about that happening there. And I don't know, it sucks, but
I think one of the other things that the legislature is missing is that we have a housing crisis in this town or in this state, and there are people that would move to Vermont for climate stability. I think that there are jobs here for farms, but there's nowhere for people to live. And so all of the out-of-state houses and just all the houses that people can't afford to buy is making our schools smaller. So if we consolidate into one big building, we could go the route of the middle school that I went to, where they then added 15 trailers because people moved into the community and kids were schooled out of trailers.
Yeah.
I feel like they're missing a bigger picture of, if we had houses here, people would probably move here.
And it's become very political, right?
Yes, it's all political, yeah.
So keeping students at the heart of what we're doing,
Yep.
really important.
Yep. Yeah. So,
But you got this, Hannah.
I mean, it's not gonna again, like this is just I'm not super worried about it's the work is like the next like 3 years, I think, right? Once we find out what the Senate passes, and just making sure that I think getting, what I would hope might come out of this letter too is like engaging Hartland families, right? If we can sort of publish this in a way just to make sure Hartland families are paying attention, so that there is presence in these various meetings and listen and learn things, whatever.
And Hannah and Nikki, if the two of you want, we could do, if you're comfortable with sending something out to the larger school community, we can,
might do
once
that.
that's written, we can send it on behalf of the board, just
to the town. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea of it, right? Is to like publish it as like, here's our public statement in response to this legislative work.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I am very grateful the legislature is taking this up and working on it. And to be honest, I think it's good that they're taking a slower approach than Phil Scott wants them to. Like, I think they're actually trying. And it is so interesting, right? That it was like, there was like really bipartisan support for it. So it's, but I worry that there's not like, again, I just don't know how much the kids are represented in those sessions.
Right.
So I don't know that bipartisan support means that kids' needs are being represented.
And I still worry that everybody's Chittenden County based and that nobody is thinking about.
Yeah. So that's a question too. Do you think we need to, I don't feel equipped to say anything about this, but like one of the, a key thing here is like the foundation formula or whatever they call it, foundation funding seems low, right? What they're offering.
Yeah.
Like, but do we have any where did that number come from? And is that number appropriate for our side of the state?
Those are great questions, Hannah. The numbers, I think they're coming from the Picus report, and they're estimating what staffing a school of this size should have. And they take that number and divide it and get the student rate. They've talked about weights, right? There could be additional funds on top of that base formula for students, ELL students and students with special needs, but it is low. That is a concern. If we had to use that number in our budgets next year, we'd be cutting a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I know, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So we need to put that in that letter too.
Yeah, so I'll include something about that too, just that like that number may not be appropriate. And, because I think they took out the weighting for population density less than 100, right? And that's us, because our population density is 77.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fun. This is fun. This is great. I love this.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move us on because I think we're all at work. So I'm gonna get back to my work. So I'll take a motion to adjourn. Ryan?
I'll second it.
And then we'll just do all those in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So Christine, you can stop the recording. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.